We're going to stay in the healing world of nature, but take a slightly different angle in how we do it as we hear from JT. But let's go back in JT's past a little bit. JT Kucinski.
Well, thank you for those wonderful photos, Chris. Hello, everyone. My name is JT Kucinski, and for my independent trimester, I chose to explore a topic that, while it might seem simple on the surface, is actually deeply tied to who we are as people, our relationship with nature. I've always noticed something interesting about myself. How much more clearer, calmer, and more energized I feel after spending time outside. Just being out in the open, breathing fresh air, hearing birds, or watching the trees move in the wind has always made me feel more alive. But as I looked around, at how people live today, I started to see something strange. Less and less nature in people's daily lives. Kids are growing up indoors more than ever. Schools are replacing recess and outdoor time with screens and academic pressure, and in many cities, concrete now dominates spaces where green used to grow. I would also know this, as I used to be glued to my screen all the time. Even here in this valley, where we're lucky to be surrounded by so much natural beauty, the very experience of nature itself is disappearing. And that's just the key. Just being near nature doesn't mean we're connected to it. You can have a forest outside your window and still never go in it. We reached a point where this disconnection isn't just common, it's becoming the norm. And that's a problem, because this trend, it's not just random, it's growing, and it matters. A lot. So I started wondering, what really happens when people stop spending time in nature? How does it really affect our development, our minds, our bodies, and even our communities? That's what I set out to explore. And through my research, I came to a core conclusion, my thesis. As nature exposure declines in modern society, reintegrating access to natural environments is essential to support human development and promote mental, physical, and social well-being. Once I had my thesis, I wanted to get really clear about what I was trying to figure out. So, in turn, I set 3 main goals for this ITri. First, I wanted to understand what we actually lose when our daily exposure to nature declines. Not just in theory, but in real world ways that affect how we live, how we feel, and how we function. Second, I wanted to dive into the research behind it all. What does the research say about nature's impact on our mental health, our physical health, our long-term development, and our long-term development? And third, I wanted to find real solutions, not just ideas that sound good in theory, but actual ways that we can bring nature back into schools, cities, and systems that shape our lives every day. But this issue isn't just about 3 things. It actually sits right on the intersection of 3 different environments that we talk about in human ecology. The natural environment, forests, parks, animals, and green spaces. The built environment, cities, schools, and screen-based life. And the social environment, how we grow, how we learn, and how we connect with other people. Let's start with the problem. What actually happens when humans grow up with less nature? There's a term for it, nature deficit disorder. It's not a medical diagnosis, but it's a powerful idea. It describes a pattern we're seeing more and more. Children who grow up without regular outdoor play tend to experience more anxiety, have less focus, spend more time on screens, and struggle more with stress. Author Richard Louv described it as an atrophied awareness, a fading ability to find meaning and connection in the life that surrounds us. In other words, disconnection from nature leads to disconnection from everything else. Fewer and fewer people, especially in cities, are visiting natural places. This leads to what some call the extinction of experience. The less people interact with nature, the less they value it. And the less they value it, the more it disappears. From our culture, from our education, and from daily life. It's a dangerous cycle. And it's not just emotional, it's developmental. When kids don't get regular exposure to nature, it slows down how the brain develops, especially in areas like focus, creativity, problem solving. These aren't small things. These are the building blocks of learning, growth, and a healthy adulthood. And they're being stunted before they can fully even form. So nature isn't just helpful, it's a core part of how we grow. Now, why exactly is nature so powerful for the mind? The answer is actually pretty simple. Because nature gives our brains a break. It's quiet, it's gentle, and it allows for wandering thoughts, slow breathing, mental recovery. When our minds get space to rest, everything gets easier. Thinking, regulating emotion, and making decisions. Researchers found that people who walked in natural settings had significantly lower anxiety and fewer negative thoughts than those in a city. And another study found that kids who grew up with the least green space had a 55% higher risk of developing mental health struggles later on, even after factoring in income or family background. So again, nature isn't just nice to have, it's a kind of protection, a buffer against burnout, depression, and stress. But it doesn't stop there. Nature also helps the body too. Kids who have access to green spaces move more, and not in a forced or structured way, but in joyful, spontaneous movement. The more access kids have to the outdoors, the more likely they are to meet healthy activity goals, and the less likely they are to struggle with things like obesity. Why? Because nature makes movement fun. No one has to tell you to go run, or climb, or balance on a log. The environment invites you into motion. And here's something wild. Trees actually help boost your immune system. Forest air contains plant compounds called phytoncides that trigger immune cell activity in the body. Cells that help fight off viruses and even cancer. Trees fighting off cancer. And just breathing fresh air in the forest helps your body function better. It helps you lower your stress level at the same time. Being in nature doesn't just prevent illness, it strengthens your health from the inside out. But for me, the most powerful part of this project wasn't just reading studies, it was living them. And just a quick note, every photo you're seeing here is from my field days. Over the last couple months, I spent a huge amount of time outside. I completed 80 hours of wilderness first responder training, including outdoor simulations, real-time problem solving. I hiked through canyons and ridgelines in California, explored volcanic trails in Hawaii, and returned to the paths near my house in Idaho. Sometimes I'd walk for 5 hours straight, just paying attention to how I felt. Other times, I'd sit and journal in stillness beneath the tree. At first, it just felt like part of the assignment, but then something shifted. I noticed that my thoughts quieted. My body felt stronger, and I wasn't just reading about nature's benefits. I was living them. And this experience is exactly what we're trying to protect and restore. So, what exactly do we do about all this? Honestly, it starts small. We don't need giant programs or policies to begin the healing the disconnect. We just need to make different choices. Go for a walk instead of scrolling. Eat lunch outside. Slow down just enough to notice the wind, the clouds, the dirt under our feet. Remember that we are part of nature, not separate from it. And we need to build that awareness into how we live, into our classrooms, our schedules, our shared spaces. And when we do, everything else just gets a little bit better. We don't need to reinvent the wheel, we just need to start rolling in the right direction. After everything I've learned, a couple things became really clear. Bringing nature back into our lives might be one of those powerful and most overlooked ways to heal. Not just our minds, not just our bodies, but our community, our values, our function, our future. Nature strengthens people. It lowers stress, it reduces suffering, and most importantly, it helps raise a generation that doesn't just feel better, but that cares more, connects more, and protects the world we live in. And the best part, the solution isn't abstract. It's not expensive, and it's not far away. It's just outside. Thank you. Specifically Nathan, Chris, Matt, Benji Hill, and my parents. Questions?
JT,
Yeah.
as you did more and more of these hikes, how did your thought process develop and evolve as you were out on some of these long hikes at different locations?
Well, I stopped thinking of it more as me being in nature, or I guess I started thinking of it more of like I am part of this, where I came from nature and I'm like sort of one with, not one with it, but like one with the deer, the elk, and the trees. I'm not separate from this anymore.
What was your favorite hike?
It's a tie between Wahine Ridge, which is one of these photos, and Haleakala, which you're seeing now, because that one was above the, Haleakala was above the clouds. Wahine Ridge, I had never seen so much greenery in my life, and it was quite amazing. Oh, yeah.
Great job, JT. Did you find that there was a difference between, let's say, being out in the green at the Sage School and being at the Haleakala, have you pronounced that, volcano? Did that feel different, or just being in green space is important regardless?
I mean, on a practical level, being in any green space is important and beneficial, but there's something really surreal about being above the clouds at like 10,000 feet and hiking down into this crater that used to be filled with lava versus on a field of grass just playing with your friends. So I think there's a similarity because obviously they're both nature, but there's definitely their differences. Yeah.
First of all, I really loved your presentation. I love how you didn't have words on the screen and your photos were amazing. It's interesting, how do you carry this forward with you? And yeah, I guess that's.
Well, I plan to do stuff in my career. I'm pretty certain I'm going into environmental engineering, and part of the reason I chose Connecticut College, if you don't know that's where I'm going, was because it's really close to a lot of really cool natural environments. But I guess carrying it forward, like just making time in my schedule, like I said, to spend time in nature, but then also like, I don't know, helping the environment through my work that I will eventually be doing. And then I think you had a question too?
Yeah, JT, that was such a fantastic presentation. I really, really enjoyed it. I wondered if you ever specifically went out on a, like, what you would call like a therapeutic walk. Like you were upset, anxious, frustrated, anything, and you specifically said, I'm gonna go out until I feel better. And if you ever did that, I was wondering how long that took. Did you find that that transition from disconnect to connect was pretty quick, or sometimes took a really long time, or?
Well, I sometimes get distracted pretty easily, so there were two scenarios where, one, it took like 3 hours walking around Elkhorn where I live to distract myself, and then with Wahine Ridge, that one, like immediately as soon as I set foot in the forest, I was like, this is crazy, there are pine trees on this island that are like hundreds and hundreds of feet, and it distracted me immediately, and I didn't think I thought about any like anxiety or anything until like the end of the day at the very least. Felix?
Were you and Benj like close together in Hawaii at the same time?
No, not at all.
JT, as I'm just getting to know you better over the last year or so,
I don't know what you were like as like a 6th, 7th, and 8th grader. Are you surprised that your ITri ended up being something like this?
Yeah, pretty surprised.
What did you think it was going to be?
Well, I don't know, because it's kind of hard to put myself back in that mindset. I think I've progressed enough where I don't want to regress. But it definitely wouldn't have been something like this. It probably would have been, I want to say something closer to Benji's almost.
What was your 9th grade self said to you?
Unless he's stupid.
Anybody else? All right.
Oh,
I
again?
have one more thing. I thought it was really interesting how you had the soundtrack in the background and how that was an important piece, the hearing versus actually experiencing. And that was really thought provocative and that was just, that was a really cool piece of things.
Thank you.